Hi guys, this video is going to be all about your ascendant sign. We're going to talk about how to find your ascendant sign, what the ascendant sign means, why it's important. So let's get into it. I made a video recently all about the different angles, including the ascendant, the IC, the descendant, the midheaven, so check that out if you haven't already. But let's just dive into exactly what the ascendant is. First of all, the ascendant is also known as the rising sign, so these words are interchangeable when you're looking into information regarding the ascendant and rising sign. It is the same thing. So I will put a few timestamps down below, but we're going to be talking about how to find your ascendant sign, what the ascendant sign is, what it can tell us, and then we'll wrap up with a little bit of extra information. So how can you find your ascendant sign? So let's put a picture right here of a birth chart. You need to have your birth time, date, information in order to find your rising sign. If you only know your birthday but you don't know the time you were born or the place you were born, sometimes you can get away with not knowing the exact place, but a certain area can be fine. But if you don't know your time of birth, unfortunately, you can't really tell what your ascendant sign is. You can work with astrologists that specialize in rectifying a chart in order to try to find out your ascendant sign. But for the purposes of this video, it is important to have your birth time and to be able to access your birth chart. So once you have that information, you can go to any website that does a birth chart generator. I will link ones that I like or one that I like down below. And you want to type in that information and you'll get your birth chart. So what you're going to look for is the sign that is rising at the time of your birth. So it is the sign that is on that first house cusp. So I'll just put it here. But that is a sign that is considered to be your rising sign. So what is the ascendant sign? The ascendant sign is a sign that was rising on the eastern horizon at the time of your birth. So again, you will see that on the first house cusp. And the first house has to do with self. It has to do with your physical body, your state of being, the way that you view the world, the way the world views you. So all these things apply when we're talking about the rising sign. So whichever sign is your rising sign can also tell you your chart rulers. So for instance, my rising sign is Sagittarius. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, so the ruler of my chart is Jupiter, and that's something that the ascendant sign can tell you. The ascendant is on an axis with the 7th house cusp, the descendant, so these work together, the descendant and the ascendant, so that's something else that's worth looking into. I do want to make a video in the future about the descendant and the different signs that you can have there, so stay tuned for that. So it's on that axis with the 7th house cusp, so we have I am and we have I balance. So again, these work together and they have different meanings and different interpretations and understandings for how to kind of grasp what each of these placements means for you personally. So basically the ascendant is representative of your soul's entrance into this world, into this realm of existence. It is often referred to as the sunrise placement. So think about your experience of birth, which the ascendant can also tell us a bit about, but I mean, obviously we don't remember it, but to be thrust into a new environment, it can be a bit startling, it can be a bit scary, perhaps exciting, and all of these things can tell us what the ascendant means for us. The ascendant sign is the energy that surrounds you when you are in a new place, when you are around people you don't know, when you're uncomfortable, unsettled, scared, feeling like you need to protect yourself. Again, it's kind of like that front that comes on more instinctually. It's not typically a mask that you knowingly put on, but it's more of an instinctual part of your persona that comes out when you are a little bit unsure, when you're in a new environment, things along those lines. I kind of think of it as a bit of a security blanket. You know, it's what you reach for when you're feeling, again, unsure, unsafe, not really knowing how you're going to navigate a new situation. It's what you reach for and what you hold on tight to and how you feel safe in new situations or around new people. Again, it's an instinctual response and it's how you adapt to new environments. When you need to kind of feel things out and explore, it's a part of yourself that you access. The ascendant can come out when people first meet you. It is also their perception of you. So I referenced this in my angles video, but imagine a house. The ascendant is kind of the exterior of the house. It's what you see when you first walk up to approach it. You know, it's what you have to initially meet before you're able to enter the house. So you have to see the, exterior of the house before you go into the house and then, get to know maybe a deeper side of that person or a different part of that person. But unless you're in, a very unusual situation, typically you have to see the exterior of the house before you're able to enter and go inside. So that exterior is kind of how I think of the ascendant. And as much as your ascendant or rising is indicative of your view of your surroundings, it is also other people's view of you, especially their first impression, what they feel initially upon meeting you. And that is a general overall look at what the ascendant sign is. But what can the ascendant sign tell us about ourselves, about people we know, or people we don't know? It can actually tell us about our birth. So look at the ascendant sign, kind of get a feel for that energy, and then kind of look at what else is going on in your chart. Where is your chart ruler placed? What other aspects are forming with that ascendant sign? Are there planets in the first house? Are they near that ascendant? If you have a planet that is very close to the ascendant, that can typically tell you a bit about your actual birth. Like for instance, my Saturn is very close to my ascendant, and my birth experience, not me having a child, but my mother having me, was very risky. Like it ended up being kind of a scary situation. So Saturn can often indicate that, but other planets mean other things as well. So you can kind of look at that. You can look at any planets that are interacting with the ascendant. Again, you can look at where your chart ruler is and what's happening with that. So there's many different things you can look at to kind of access the story of your birth, but it is kind of fun to look at your chart and see if you can figure out what your chart is trying to tell you about that. The ascendant can tell us about our appearance. Again, the first house is I am, right? So it's our self, it's our body, our physical self. It is our self beyond our physical self. It's all about self. It's all about us. So if we're talking about the physical portion of that, then the ascendant can represent our appearance. I do have to say that there's a lot more in your birth chart that goes into your appearance than just your ascendant. Your sun sign can go into that. There's so many different things that can contribute to your appearance, but there are certain features that do tend to be seen, not with everybody, but with, a decent amount of people with the same ascendants. So it is interesting to look into, and again, the ascendant sign can have an influence on your appearance depending on, other parts of your chart and how they kind of interact with that. It can tell us about our health. So I know the 6th house is often where people look when they're looking at anything health related, but the first house is very important in that area as well. The first house, again, is about our physical self, our self beyond physicality, our mental being and stuff along those lines. So that rising sign, that energy can tell us about different things concerned with our physical health, our mental health, so on and so forth. And again, you want to look at how the ascendant interacts with the rest of your chart to get a better picture and understanding of how that rising sign energy can give you certain information about your own health. The ascendant can tell us how we act in new situations. For instance, how we might act on a job interview, how we might act on a first date, how we might act meeting new people. Say you've joined a new group of some sort. How are you going to act versus how the other people in this group, all of you don't really know each other. Typically, your ascendant energy is going to come out. It can tell us about a significant placement in our chart. I know I mentioned this at the beginning, but the ascendant, the ruler of that ascendant, is our chart ruler. So that placement is important, and the ascendant can tell us that. The ascendant sign can tell us about our early childhood experiences. Again, the ascendant, that first house, has a lot to do with your perception of the world, your environment, the world around you. So a lot of times this energy can kind of tell us how our perception may be shaped in certain ways. And again, you do want to look at other things that are going on in the first house and things going on in the chart, but that ascendant energy can give you a little bit of an understanding of early childhood experiences. The ascendant can tell us about our general outlook on the world. So envision a costume party. You have some people that are in head-to-toe costume, you can't even tell who they are, and then you have other people that are in costumes, like maybe they just have, sunglasses on, and you can see most of who that person is. And this is kind of how the ascendant works. Some ascendant signs mask the true self almost entirely And other ascendant signs allow a much larger glimpse of that true self, so depending on the chart and the ascendant. But different ascendant signs work different ways. So some of them, again, are more protective of the true self behind the ascendant, and others are more open in allowing others to see that true self. And going along with the idea of a party, the same party can be experienced in multiple different ways by different people. If you interviewed every person after a party and they gave you a detailed account of what happened from their perspective at that party, you're going to get different stories from every single person. No story is going to be exactly the same, and that's kind of how the ascendant works. You know, we all have different perceptions of our reality, of the world around us, of our environment, of people that we meet. So when you're talking to somebody after an event, after a party that, you know, it's the same party, every single person went there, you're going to get different versions of the same event. And that is how the ascendant works. We're all at different viewing points. We all have different views. We all have different outlooks. And your rising sign can kind of tell you a bit about how your outlook and perception of the world is different from somebody with a different rising sign. And again, your entire chart plays into this, but even just looking at that ascendant or rising sign, you can tell a difference between somebody's outlook with a Scorpio ascendant versus somebody with a Sagittarius ascendant. So I like to think of the ascendant as a bodyguard. It's what comes between others and our true self. You know, some bodyguards are more chill, or the situation isn't as dire, but other bodyguards, it's more like a life or death situation, and they're gonna, you know, protect at all costs. And that's very similar to rising sign energies. So again, the ascendant is our perception of reality and others' perceptions of us. And a lot of times that perception of us can depend on your relationship with another person. So even if you're friendly with somebody, if you haven't let them, you know, get past the ascendant into your true self, that can be part of their perception of you. Other people that are closer to you get to know the true you more if you allow it, depending on the rising energy as well. So that perception can be different depending on who it is that you're interacting with. And it doesn't just have to be people you're, you know, first meeting. It can be people that you know that you just keep at a bit of a distance. There are a lot of different things that come into play with our ascendant. Again, other planets that are placed in the first house, other, you know, planets or points of the chart that are interacting with the ascendant, the chart ruler and that significance, whether your chart is a day or night chart. So you definitely want to look at aspects, not only with the ascendant, but with that chart ruler as well. And one more thing I want to mention is our progressed ascendant. So when you're looking at your progressed chart, your ascendant does change every so often. So for instance, my ascendant in my progressed chart changed from Sagittarius to Capricorn at age 6, and it's actually going to be changing next year to Aquarius. So that doesn't mean that your ascendant changes. It just means that there is other energy that starts to come into play in this specific area that the ascendant influences. So if you were born with a Sagittarius ascendant and it switches into Capricorn at some point, which they do switch and it will happen at some point, you know, they're going to start to kind of blend together a bit. There's going to be a shift a little bit, but you're still going to have that Sagittarius natal chart ascendant energy, but you also have this progressed Capricorn ascendant progressed chart energy kind of in the mix as well. So that is all about the ascendant sign. Let me know what your ascendant sign is in the comments down below. I will be doing videos for each of the ascendant signs coming up, so be on the lookout for that. And thank you so much for watching, and have a good day or night.